What's considered professional at work sure has changed a lot, especially with so many people working from home right now. The co-founder and CEO of a firm called Feminuity, Dr. Saska, joins us with more. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Annette. Thanks so much for having me.
So, I mean, everything from work, kind of work hours has changed. Dress code, remember we used to have that. Now everybody's wearing socks and slippers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the world has changed, right? We've changed. The ways of working have changed.
And have a lot of big firms changed as well in their mindset? Or are they still kind of, okay, no, this is the way it is, and just because you're working from home doesn't mean that you can change things?
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations, especially some sort of those in older, sort of more formalized industries, have been resistant to the change. That maybe they've allowed it to happen, right? Over this sort of 2 years of the pandemic, but they haven't formalized it, right? In terms of their policies, their programs, they haven't codified it yet because they think, we're going to shift back. Sort of, there's going to be this sort of return to normal at some point.
But I can imagine that it's probably not, because a lot of people are rethinking what they're doing, right? And if I have to go back and work in a big firm and play by these rules again, it's kind of ridiculous.
Oh, totally. I think this is this beautiful moment in the world for organizations to really question the false assumptions that are really tied up with, professionalism, right? They still think that professionalism is good for brands and marketing and their customers, and they'll be able to scale their business under the guise of professionalism. But as we round this 2-year mark of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's time to unpack it, right? Because there's deep-seated biases that really live within these ideas of professionalism, right? Whether it relates to dress codes or ways of communicating or ways of caregiving as examples. And so many people are left out, right? They're not able to sort of live out loud and be affirmed in their workplace.
Because so much of that bias is against women.
Oh, totally. If you look at something like dress codes, right? For example, dress codes, it's sort of entrenched within them are really sort of harsh and discriminatory sort of ways of thinking about women's bodies and femmes' bodies. Or if you look at caregiving, right? Women are still the ones sort of predominantly providing caregiving, whether to tiny humans or aging parents or neighbors or partners and so forth. And yet, the sort of the mode of how organizations approach caregiving is still there's work you and there's home you, right? And we need to exist in tandem, right? Especially as our personal and working lives are more blurred than ever before.
So what does your firm do then? Do you work with corporations to show that, okay, this is the way that things are changing, here's how you change it, and yet still, maintain a professional attitude?
Totally, absolutely. We like to talk about the fact that we support our organizations to align their good intentions with their impact, right? So an organization can say that they want to be more inclusive and more equitable, but what does that look like? It looks like grounding that in policies and programs and processes, right? You need to give structure to allow those awesome things to be true.
And I can imagine that involves a lot more planning by women.
Totally. Still, yeah, women disproportionately are the ones doing sort of office work chores, right? Note taking, scheduling meetings, all sorts of things. Even if they're not within an administrative or operations related role, it's still a thing.
Now, do you work mainly with large firms or do you work with smaller companies as well?
Yeah, we work with everyone from sort of startups through to Fortune 500s.
Okay, and if someone is, is it a one-off, or is this, no, everybody's gonna have to go through workshops, and what kind of range of products do you offer?
Yeah, so we do everything from really fulsome assessments of organizations, so surveys and interviews and referring and reviewing their policies, their programs, their offerings, to designing really holistic strategies for them, to certainly the educational components. And then we work with them over the long haul, right? Sort of as a project management capacity to actually help them to land these efforts, right? And to implement them in a sustainable fashion.
It's going to be fascinating to see how we all come out of this and how people move away kind of from that home office or the kitchen table and back into work, how things are changing and how they will change in the future. So Sarah, thanks very much. We'll get the links up to Feminuity on our website, chch.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.